sure all of you have seen, I'm Matt Conkler. I'm the CEO of Blackpoint Enterprises. I've been involved in the national security defense space most of my career. I'm a Southern Indiana native who now has the pleasure of living in Northeast Indiana and have had for the last 12 years. I'm just going to introduce our panel here quickly. To my immediate right is Chris Jeffers, and Chris is the State Director of PTAC. To her right is Jean Jones, and Jean is a Senior Services Manager with the Purdue Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And last but not least, Adam Eichelberger, and Adam is with IN3. So if you don't mind, let's kick off. Chris, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name is Chris Jeffers. I'm the PTAC State Director. I'm also housed at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, or IEDC is the state agency. PTAC is a program funded by the Department of Defense to help businesses do government contracting. And so that's a lot, right? We've heard today it's a lot. And I think that the most interesting thing I've heard today is we've gone back and forth between innovation and supply chain. And they're both important. We need both, right? But each one of those has different paths and different ways of doing business with the government. And we have all of that here in Indiana. We have all of that. We have the innovative companies with hypersonics. We have Trek 10 sitting over there. I mean, we have, I know, I called you out, Jim. And then we have supply chain. We have those companies too. And then we have academia. Notre Dame and Purdue are doing amazing things in hypersonics, and we have all that here in Indiana. So we're in a good spot. We're in a good spot to work together, and we're in a good spot to solve some of these problems. However, there are barriers, and we talk about barriers into federal contracting space. We talk about new entrants. That's the new buzzword in the federal space. How do we get new entrants? That's a hard one. There's barriers. The process itself is a barrier. Just the process. It's a barrier. Mailing and shipping, Mike, right? It's a barrier, right? Barriers can also be bandwidth. Is the company ready to do federal contracting? We talk about that a lot. I talk about that a lot with my friend Matt from Crane. Is a company able to do federal contracting? Are they truly ready and have the capabilities of doing it? Do they have cybersecurity? That we'll talk about here in a minute. There's also innovation barriers as well. And so what we did as the state is we kind of came together and decided the two barriers we can control or help companies with in the state of Indiana is CMMC. I know anyone that knows me knows how much I hate talking about cybersecurity. I really do, but it is here and it's coming and we have to do it. So we are lucky enough in the state of Indiana that Purdue MEP join forces with us to give companies CMMC training. And then the other issue is innovation. And so we looked at contracting avenues for Sibrs and Sttrs. And in the state of Indiana, we are not playing in that space comparatively enough as other states. In fact, Adam can probably tell you some numbers that are alarming as well. But we partnered with IN3 to help us in that Sibr and STTR space. But again, I also want to acknowledge, I want to thank Congressman Banks for having this today, and I want to acknowledge Nydia. You guys are in a great location in Northeast Indiana. You have a very organized defense association and the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership, and that's what it's going to take to get us to where we need to go.
Great. Jean?
Well, thank you. It's amazing to me the person who says that she hates cybersecurity the most in the room is the person who stroked the biggest check. So, Indiana PTAC wrote a $100,000 check to Purdue MEP to help small businesses with cybersecurity. So, Chris, I definitely want to acknowledge that. So, back, what is Purdue Manufacturing Extension Partnership? A couple people in the room have mentioned Teresa Mayer. She operates on some of your levels. She's, several pay grades above my level, the Executive Vice President for Research and Partnerships. Purdue Manufacturing Extension Partnership is a couple of levels down from Teresa, and we're working the partnership piece of that. I've got a couple of colleagues in the back of the room. Ed Burrow covers the northwestern part of the state, and Laura Lee Christensen covers the northeastern part of the state. this region. And so what's our mission? The mission is purely making small to medium Indiana manufacturers more effective, whether that's training to make them more profitable or training to have fewer expenses, which makes them more profitable. I like to use some specific examples of the type of work that we do at Indiana businesses. Advanced manufacturing training, whether we're conducting the training or hiring a third party to do it. Quality training, lean training, or consulting, getting small to mediums ready for either their AS or their ISO certification, which, Chris talked about barriers. It takes a significant amount of funding just to get ready for an ISO or AS certification, to the tune of $24,000 or so. And so that's a barrier, but I'll talk about in a minute how we can help with that. Various workforce training. Someone mentioned ITAR earlier. We have a sub who helps with evaluating an ITAR program at a small company and training there as well. Of course, we work on cybersecurity assessments and remediation for companies in the defense supply chain. Procurement, and we do this in collaboration. PTAC really is the place to go for federal procurement database, understanding and readiness and that sort of thing. But if we have a contact that does deep mining in the same in that space, so we work together on that. DoD Tech Scout preparation. A company has a great idea or innovation, but they're not really ready to pitch it to the Department of Defense. So we have a process by which we take them through to get them ready to do that, and then introduce them to the program managers within the Department of Defense who can fund that technology. Digital, a lot of search. So we're trying to make Indiana companies stronger, but we'll just say it's a national presence, right? And how does a company outside Indiana find our Indiana company if they don't have the requisite digital presence? So we're helping with that as well. Tech adoption. We talked in the hallway about some of the challenges to tech adoption, and I'll grudgingly admit that IU did quite a nice study associated with what are the barriers for small business and tech adoption. Money, time, expertise, all those sorts of things. So we have a tech adoption specialist that actually helps companies assess and provide a report and return on investment with tech adoption to make them more efficient, drive down their price, and make them better partners for the primes in the room. Which leads me to the Purdue MEP Digital Manufacturing Technology Center that we host with Telemon in the Carmel area. Palmer's not in the room currently, but we've got a set of Oculus goggles there to demonstrate how you can train an employee in virtual reality such that they are ready to work on the line faster and with fewer mistakes. Collaborative robots, how collaborative robots there are workforce issues. Another challenge in the state of Indiana, there are workforce issues, how a collaborative robot can do things to free up personnel to work on other things. Let's see, there's wearables, personal wearables for specific individuals so that if there is a casualty or a safety situation with a person in the company, their wearables will alert management to the issue. And all of those things that I mentioned, I'm currently the program manager for funding from the Department of Defense. There was some conversation earlier from the gentleman in the back right of the room about BRAC. BRAC was under the Office of Economic Adjustment, an office within the Department of Defense. That office is now the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. And they funded Purdue with $1.5 million, not quite a year ago, about 9 months ago. And we're currently using that funding to buy down the cost of all of the things that list I just rattled through, of the various things that Purdue MEP can help with defense manufacturers. We can fund, 75% of that up to about, $20,000 to $30,000. So there's DoD helping the state of Indiana that we really appreciate. So I can't give up the microphone to Adam until I talk about cybersecurity maturity model certification. Is there anyone in the room who's not familiar with CMMC? Aaron, we know that you know what it is, Aaron. So when I ask this, so here's the thing, and this is not criticism. When I ask this question, everybody knows what CMMC is, but the knowledge goes about a millimeter deep. I'm sorry.
That's the next question.
What's the next question?
Have they uploaded their?
Oh, have you uploaded your supplier performance risk score, your Sibrs score to the DoD website? And then you start to get some blank stares. What's that? We're using some of that DoD money to help with cyber assessments and remediation. We're using the Indiana PTAC money to help with the same. It's a big problem. There's a lot of conversation this morning and early afternoon about from a global perspective, the issues associated with, I'll just call it information security, not just cyber security. Not only from a defense and national security perspective, but from a commercialization perspective. Well, we're attacking the problem in Indiana from the exact opposite direction. How is it that 50-person and 20-person or smaller machine shop has the basic cybersecurity in place in order to be a credible, from an information security standpoint, supplier in the defense industrial base? And oh, by the way, I think many of you know in the room know this, but I'll emphasize the point. There is no defense industrial base without small to medium businesses. But small to medium businesses, 50 or less, make up like 90% of the defense industrial base. It's a huge number. There's no DoD defense industrial base without small to mediums. And that's where we focus. CMMC, I was in the Navy for 30 years. I ran away from a few of those sauna buoys in my time in tactical readiness evaluations. Thank you very much for making them. Just keep them on the other side of the layer. And I lost my train of thought there when I started thinking back about the sauna buoys. But back to cybersecurity for a moment. And I'll finish on this before I hand off to Adam. There's a lot of thought that, well, because the rules back in November with the administration changed, cybersecurity, CMMC is on pause. No. The only thing that happened at a practical level, the only change that happened with CMMC is that the Department of Defense CIO is not going to apply CMMC specifically to a contract until they write the new rules. All of the other regulations are, I call them, they're in law and they exist today. The fact that you have to have, the cybersecurity controls required by the DoD contract are still there. The fact that you have to have the ability to report an incident within 72 hours, still there. The fact that you have to have your score uploaded, still there. Do you want a JCP? Do you want to look at DLA prints? You can't have it unless your score is uploaded. These are all of the practical things that are in place today for cybersecurity, CMMC, and they're not, as I said, I spent 30 years in DoD, so I think I have a pretty good sense of what's got legs, what's sustaining, and the rules associated with cyber are not going anywhere. And happy to drill down on any of those questions, but I feel like I'm starting to dominate the microphone here, Adam, so over to you.
Never, Gene. You would never dominate the microphone for too long. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Eichelberger. I'm with IN3, or the Indiana Innovation Institute. We are a nonprofit that was basically brought together by some heads of defense, by the governor, and by Purdue to work on making Indiana into a national security innovation hub. So that's part of why Chris brought us on board here to help work out how does Indiana continue to grow its defense ecosystem, how does Indiana continue to grow its innovation economy, and how does Indiana work with the federal government through various non-traditional contracting means, such as SBIRs, STTRs, which are small business innovation research and tech transfer activities. How do you work through contracting and grant processes? How does Indiana bring itself up to utilize all of that incredible innovation that we have in this state and yet all of our neighboring states, with the exception of Kentucky, are cleaning our clocks on who's actually getting these research and development SBIR, STTR, or Sibrs dollars. So has anyone here actually gone through a Sibrs or Sttrs process? All right, we got a couple people in the audience. That's great, because you are the types of folks that we really want to encourage to continue working with other partners in this ecosystem and to continue pushing for Indiana innovation to get out there into the Department of Defense, because what's good for Indiana is good for the Midwest and is good for the nation when it comes to defense. So I'm the guy they basically brought on board because I used to work in the Pentagon, was part of the acquisition corps, was a program manager for the Department of the Army there, worked on a lot of policy that had to do with basic level R&D. So after coming back to Indiana, the Indiana Innovation Institute said, hey, we need folks like that to help work Hoosiers into this whole process, since the federal government, I don't know if you know this, is a little big.
That might be the comment of the day, a little big. So the one thing that we want to touch on, which Adam hit, is we want to talk a little bit about SIBRs and STTRs. We also know that in this room, there are those of you who have subject matter expertise, Gil Perry, and those who know very little about it. So Chris, do you want to start and walk through from a learner, a beginning level maybe, the SBIR, STTR? Are we going to let Adam do that?
Okay, so the SBIR process and the STTR process are basically in there for the federal government to say, we don't really know what is out there in the ecosystem. We don't know what the economy is capable of. So why don't you tell us, either in a broad range of activities, such as the National Science Foundation always puts out about 41, 42, or 45 different broad topic areas that could be as broad as advanced manufacturing, nanotechnology, biopharmaceuticals, or you get over to the DoD, who tends to have a much more mission-oriented, give me something capable of punching down a hypersonic missile. Something that they just don't know what's an innovative way of doing this thing. So you can go from any of these broad topics where it's just the government saying, if you can squint at it and fit it into one of these topics, we want to know what it is, to something where they say, we want a very specific, give me a new technology in tires. Show me what's new in tires or treaded and non-treaded vehicles for the Army, for instance. But there's websites out there for the National Science Foundation. I believe it's sbirstttr.gov, although I'll have to go back and check that. There's a DoD STTR, STTR portal for the entire DoD, where these things come out on a fairly regular basis. But one of the things most folks don't know is that the government not only has ideas they are aware of that they put out there 2 or 3 times a year, they also have ways for when a program manager within the government, so say a PM down at Crane, hears from a small business, I have a new tech that fits into your portfolio, that program manager can turn around and go to their SBIR office and say, hey, there's a new need that I have here. I want to try out this new technology. Can you put it on the market? I've got the money, you've got the contracting vehicle. But not a lot of folks in small business actually know, who do I talk to in the government to do that? And that's where folks like PTAC, IM3, and Purdue can help you, because we have those contacts. That's part of what we're here to do, is to bridge that gap between industry, academia, and the government, because all 3 of these entities have needs and ideas, but none of them really know how to communicate directly with each other at times.
Very well said. Chris, can we talk just a minute about some of the challenges in Indiana, AKA threats?
Cyber challenges.
That's your funding.
So in Indiana, we recognize that we have a lot of businesses in the rural areas of the state, maybe not in the more urbanized areas, that are very vital to our economy. I mean, I'm part of IEDC, so all these businesses are thriving in their community. They've been around for a long time, they employ a lot of people, but maybe they haven't had the time or the expense or the knowledge to keep themselves modernized, to keep themselves safe from technology. And so we are finding those are the companies that really have the challenges of getting to where they could get CMMC certified when that comes, or uploading their score, because they don't have firewalls. Their laptops are out of date. Their machines aren't compatible. Just things like that. So we're seeing the barrier just being that they weren't ready for the cybersecurity initiatives. However, I do have to say, so the state of Indiana is looking at that, not just from a CMMC defense contracting point of view, but I work closely with IoT and the Governor's Council on Cybersecurity, and we want all of our businesses in the state of Indiana to stay safe. So it doesn't really matter if you're going to do defense contracting or not. A lot of the things that CMMC require a business to do are probably things most businesses should do in just a best practice in today. We hear people all the time saying, well, no one from China is going to come all the way to Brownstown, Indiana and steal my stuff. And we're like, no, they never were. They're going to be in their living room in China and they're going to steal it. They're not coming here. Never were going to come here. And then, we also work closely. I'm going to call her out just a little bit. We have other partners. And I think hopefully you realize you leave today that we all have partners. But the US SBA is in the back room. Lindsay, but they work with the Indiana Small Business Development Centers throughout the state, and they have cybersecurity classes for companies to, as they start now. As you start a business, as you're an entrepreneur, you need to develop your business in a way that you can be cyber secure.
Gene, from a CMMC standpoint, is there anything that you can add to that, or as far as challenges, threats, et cetera?
So many small to medium companies, a big challenge is they see it as really expensive. Well, not necessarily. The first start is 60% of all DoD contracts are anticipated to be at what's called a CMMC level 1. Level 1 is certainly achievable. It's only like 15 controls. And that's what PTAC is helping to fund. That's considerably different than if you hold controlled unclassified information, right? You're making a product that's unique to DoD. Ultra, the sonobuoy is unique to DoD, and components of that are certainly classified, but other components of that, I would imagine, are controlled unclassified material for their subcontractors. That could be expensive because that's 110 controls, and it takes a considerable amount of time and a lot of admin, that kind of time within a company to get there. That's a challenge for a small to medium company. So here's what I tell smalls. First of all, let's understand what information that you receive, because we may be able to walk you back from the ledge. Maybe it's not so expensive because you're in that 60% that only needs level 1. What type of information do you get? So that's where we start. And then we migrate to, all right, well, there is being compliant. And I understand, small to medium business, I have a subcontract with this prime, I have to be compliant, I have to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, let's start with getting those things done, getting the assessment done, getting your score uploaded, so now you're currently compliant. Now let's change our focus to, rather than continuing on this checklist mentality, let's change the focus to being effective. What is it that I can do to prevent that stray malware that was intended for the Ukrainians, that now I'm a target of opportunity? I think the people in this room know that the Russians have had an information warfare against the Ukrainian for many, many years, right? They've shut down their banking system, they've shut down their power systems and heating systems during the middle of the winter, all kinds of things like that. Not WannaCry was, shut down. Actually, it was one of the biggest cyber attacks in the entire world. It was aimed at the Ukrainians. So those targets of opportunity, that stray malware that drifts into a small to medium company, as Chris says, they're not the target, but someone clicks on the wrong thing or goes to the wrong website, and instantaneously it's now downloaded to their network, and it's a problem. Well, the dirty little secret is that in most of those cases, they weren't the target of the attack. It's a problem. It's malware for which a solution has existed for many, many months, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 years. And a routine is not technological. Having a good patch management routine where you go and update software and operating systems on a regular basis would significantly reduce that risk. That's what I mean by being more effective. Being more effective at the small to medium level doesn't necessarily mean spending tens of thousands of dollars. It just means having some good basic processes in place.
So Adam, you have a little bit of a different background and experiences that most people in this room have. Let's talk just a minute about policy. And from a policy standpoint, can you share with us a little bit about what may be in the pipeline or some things that may be on the horizon that from a policy standpoint that might be beneficial and or detrimental?
So a couple of things that we're tracking in the policy pipeline coming down is one, the DoD's big focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning. If you have anything at all that you can squint at and say involves machine learning, there's a contracting vehicle or 5 out there for you to get onto, either as a prime, a sub, or someone who can go and do language is hard today, you know that? Someone who can come on board and do an other transaction authority or an OTA sub-agreement where you basically do some actual prototyping for the federal government. Outside of the artificial intelligence and machine learning, automated systems and autonomous systems are one of the other large items that's coming down the line. When you see the DoD talking about refreshing its systems and see them talking about the future state of warfare, autonomous systems is one of the big ticket items they're looking in for any sort of a large vehicle or weapon system. The future of war is basically too fast for the human mind to follow. So that's where that machine-assisted learning and human-in-the-loop interaction basically comes into play there.
How about questions from the crowd? Paul, you're on a roll.
I attended events both in Florida and Texas, hosted by their VHACs, on mentor, crime, mentor, mentee, matchmaking, on, building connections with federal agencies, all of that. What's Indiana looking forward to in the future? It's been that you've gotten help with VTAC, predecessor, or I'm sorry,
Gil.
So we've gotten help, but there hasn't been any sort of major event or that sort of thing hosted by the state I'm aware of that brings smaller businesses into an environment where they can be competing with their potential customers, prime, or potential customers and subcontractors. And that's what are your plans?
Well, we just had Buy Indiana last week down at Crane. Okay. We had the last big defense thing we did was in Indianapolis a couple of years ago, right before COVID. It was February of 2020. In the future, we will start doing larger events again and larger matchmaking, but I think we're getting to the point with some of our primes that we need to have very targeted audience, if you will, events. I think everyone virtual versus in person, there's this need for in person, right? I mean, it's a relationship building thing, but you got to make sure it's the right people for the prime. So for example, we want to get to the point in Indiana where, AM General can come and say, hey, Chris, we're looking for this type of vendor in these areas, and we can have an event for that. But then there is also a need for the overall, because I think it's important for all Indiana businesses to know what the big concept is for defense. And so to answer your question, I think that at IEDC at least, I think once we get past the global summit that IEDC is hosting for the first time ever, I think you'll start seeing some more matchmaking events starting to come out. But I think they'll be more localized and not statewide. Is that, unless you want it. Now, that's the other thing. And right now, the Fort Wayne position, I don't have a PTAC person there. It's vacant. So if you know anybody, it's been posted 3 times. So I know exactly what it's like on the workforce issue right now. But if you want to know, right, we'll start having more local things, so. I have to say that one thing Congressman Rogers said that's really important is the relationships. And so it goes back to your question about the networking and the events. Everything goes back to relationships, everything. Who you know, who you talk to, who you met with one time. It goes back to the contracting offices too. So it's not just about meeting with the primes, it's meeting with program offices. That's why Buy Indiana is such a great resource. How many contracting officers did we have go through? So it's really important, but I think that's an important part of the event as well. And so I think we'll work on that too.
Other questions? Uh-oh, Gil.
We all said that.
There you go, sir.
So I just want to say that to the question of building relationships for those small businesses that want to help with their own networking, even here in Northeast Indiana, you might want to join the Northeast Indiana Defense Industry Association. Our website is nidiaonline.org, and we have several social events throughout the year which help with networking. We also have some keynote speakers. I'm sitting at the table with the president of NIDIA right now. Rick Howard is the president and a program manager with BAE. I'm sitting here with Dave Jost, who's formerly with, well, not formerly, he is with Ultra Electronics, soon to be Avnet. Advent, is that right? Anyway, I'll get it right. So anyway, it's the NIDIA Association is really worth your while and worth your time. Great networking and great relationship building. And by the way, I'll mention that Chris is on the board of directors.
I am. They elected me on the board recently, which I appreciate. But I was just going to say, Gil, I do have the position open in Fort Wayne. I know you're retired from it, but it's still open. So.
I think she just voted you back on.
I did.
So I wanted to get a little more clarity about the extension program. When I was growing up, the different universities and in the state had extension programs where essentially there were local offices that were helping business and so on. Is that what you're experiencing? Is the university actually having offices out in the local communities? Is there a place here in Northeast Indiana that people can go to look where they could lash up with what Purdue is doing?
Yeah, it's not quite as extensive as the ag extension programs, I think, which is a model that you're using. We have Laura Lee Christensen, who waved earlier. Wave again, Laura Lee. She is the Northeastern Indiana rep, and she can meet with anyone in Northeastern Indiana anytime, anywhere they want to meet. So I think that answers the question. That answers the direct question about Northeastern Indiana. Now, I mentioned that Ed Burrow is the Northwestern Indiana rep, and we have a Southern Indiana rep, and then there's a rep who spends a lot of her time in the Elkhart region, and 2 in the Indianapolis area. So we push throughout the state, and some of the offices are throughout the state, but not on the level of the Ag Extension Program. We're regional.
Anybody else?
Well, I do have the microphone. I guess I see Representative Banks just walked back in the room. So I do really want to thank you for having us. Really a great event. Really interesting speakers. I was pleasantly surprised, and I hope you do it again, because everybody in the room said that they wanted to hear about cybersecurity again next time.
I never heard that. But again, I challenge everyone to continue to be savvy. That's what we kind of call it at work, those savvy clients. Work your relationships, follow up at least. I hope everyone leaves here today with at least making 3 or 5 follow-up emails from someone that you met or someone that you want to meet, someone to thank, because that's how the relationships are built throughout the state.